And with that music, you know exactly what it is, but you never know when it's going to happen. That's the sound of me trying to figure it out. However, this week, I'm not the one that's got to figure it out. I think my buddy John over here needs to figure it out, because it sounds like it sounds like there's a little bit of a creative streak somewhere inside that you never got out. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Super Eyepatch Wolf to Woolie Will Figure It Out.
It's great and terrifying to be here.
You made something, or you tried to make something at some point, and it sounds like you might not have ever spoken to anyone about it.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I mentioned this fact to you, but no, I've never spoken out loud about this project to anyone.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Like, thinking back on it, I've showed people, like, drawings and design stuff from it, but I have never, like, sat down and been like, this is what it was, which is why I'm so worried this is going to be a train wreck.
Wow, okay. Okay, so I have to explain, like, I am giddy right now with anticipation, but also because if you've heard the way we've talked about our previous failures on things we've worked on in the other episodes, there is absolutely a catharsis to just getting it off and out, getting it off your chest, getting it out there. And even if the cringe is still too deep, right? Even if it's still something that's kind of recent and hurts or not, there's like a post-mortem that generally needs to be done, whether silently or publicly,
so
on
like,
these projects.
I can definitely feel the cringe with it, but you know what kind of scares me more? I can feel that, like, but what if?
You haven't let go. Like, you haven't.
But what if we just do 15 minutes a day?
That is exactly what I'm looking for, because that means this really was like that you were attached to. This was your baby. Right?
Oh, big time.
If this was something you were absolutely done with and it was just another one of those projects that came and went, like, you wouldn't have that what if feeling. But the fact that there's residue that lingers means this was the child. I still
sometimes draw these characters.
Oh, yeah, you do. Yeah. Oh, my God.
It's bad.
Okay. So we're talking about, there's art involved. I didn't even ask you what medium.
See, the thing... One of the major problems with this project, and I think I would imagine this is like pretty universal with people and this kind of stuff, it was more of a world than a story. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I had all these like factions and all these characters and all these ideas and all these big world-changing plot points. What I didn't have was like, well, I did have like chapter 1 and stuff, but I never had like a legitimate way, a feasible way to tell this story.
And so you had characters and a world and a sandbox that you let them play in.
Okay, so if we're gonna if we're gonna get specific, and I was thinking about this recently, what this was really was a way for me to book my own wrestling federation. But it wasn't as a wrestling federation. The idea was it was this giant city where there was all these different factions. But professional wrestling was like the be all and end all of this city. So say like one faction I think I remember was the Skull Corps. And this was before like the Skull guys in Pokemon Black and White. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't just shamelessly ripping them off. I think I might have been shamelessly ripping off Air Gear. Mm-hmm. But the idea was to join these guys. All you needed was like a skull mask and you could go out into the streets and you were one of them. And they were kind of like anonymous nearly. They had no real values. They were completely random. And they would have champions that they'd put forward into the wrestling. And if their guys could win the belts, they'd reign dominance over the city. That was the basic idea of this.
I can hear a little bit of the excitement that's definitely still there.
I can't help it.
And I'm not even going to let you continue with going down this lane of what you enjoy about the story, because the first thing we actually need to know is what year we're in?
Okay, I would say this is me kind of fourth year of art college. So I'm maybe like 21, 22-ish.
Okay. What year is it?
Oh, I want to say 2008, 2009.
Okay. And this is your first, like, is this something that, like, you've had little bits and pieces that you trapper keeper sort of built up, and then it got to this point?
You see a cool thing in a video game, you go, I want to do something with that. And you record it, and you start combining it all into this massive, impossible project.
Did it start with an OC, and then you built a world around them?
Not really. It was nearly the kind of opposite. But like thinking back, there was definitely an OC in it, and
Okay.
Yeah.
There was one.
Oh, there was a bunch. Yeah, for sure.
Are there? Okay. Is there evidence and are there traces of this on a DeviantArt page somewhere?
No,
there's
faded sketchbook pages in my apartment.
In your apartment, okay. So you're in art school.
Mm-hmm.
You start to put pieces together, and the first building block is the world itself.
Yeah, I think one of the big like inspirations for it was, have you seen Tekken Concrete?
I haven't seen it, but I know Tekken Concrete. Yeah,
that was a huge one, and like I've always just loved like the idea of like cities with identities, or like towns with identities. Like Silent Hill would have been another one as well, where it's like this place, but it's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
And with this city, I think I called it Angel City, which, Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what I liked was the idea that it was this massive city with all these factions, and they were nearly like it was nearly like a kind of organism, in that the city was kind of self-sustaining. No one faction could get too powerful because of all the other factions. Does that make sense?
Well, first you need to establish, because you're clearly in this world already, but you need to let us know from the outside.
Okay.
The rules of this world. Is this wrestling world?
Yes.
Is this a world?
Wrestling is the most important thing in the world.
Pokemon are the most important thing in the Pokemon world.
That is
Beyblade
the exact
is what
comparison
the
I would
currency of
use.
Beyblade and every
If people are not like wrestlers, they are wrestling adjacent.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. It is the Yu-Gi-Oh! It is the insert anime like fad that runs the world.
Yeah.
Wrestling is it.
It looks like fake wrestling looks, but it's real.
Yeah. And Irish whips are what exactly?
They work, but no one's ever like Irish whipped anyone towards a horizon. Because I don't know how to write that.
Oh, that's food for thought. Is because like I don't know if you remember when we had Brennan on, but we talked about what his stand would be, and his stand would be a kayfabe aura, where things would happen according to the rules of wrestling.
Yeah.
In real life, whether people liked it or not.
Yeah.
You know, like if I Irish whip you, you are bouncing back and you cannot help it. You know? So
Yep.
Okay. So this is a world where wrestling is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And it's a city specifically.
It's a city, and it's kind of like the people who have the belts in wrestling. It nearly becomes sort of political, because like the resources of the city go to their faction decides what's important for the city. So like, say I mentioned that faction earlier, the Skull Corps, they're kind of just chaos. They just don't want anything to work correctly. They're like, it's nearly like nihilism. And so it's like, if they become the champions, if they're the best, if their guys are in power, then it's like everything kind of goes to hell.
Right. The city goes under the purge almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What medium did you choose?
I was doing this in a comic book format.
Western comic book.
Yep.
Okay. Did you actually plan out a sort of like it was just going to be like an indie published issue to issue sort of thing.
I don't think I even
graphic
knew
novel,
because I was just so into it. I was like, maybe I'll make a video game out of it. You know, when you're young and you think crazy fucking
Sky's
things
the
like
limit.
that. Yeah, and like I think around that time I had just played Cave Story as well, and I was like, one guy, did
one
this.
man.
Whoa, well, maybe, maybe
I can do an entire episode on the pixel effect.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm gonna coin that right now because fucking Cave Story had such a profound effect on so many people. Dokutsu Monogatari, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This game comes out of nowhere in the early aughts.
Yep.
And everyone that hears about it then immediately hears that it's made by one guy, and he's this office worker that does this in his spare time and creates a game with legend, like the music,
Yep.
the programming, the gameplay, the design, the art, the story, all of it firing on all cylinders.
Yeah,
one
and
of the
like,
greatest
you've
classics.
never played anything like it. Its look is complete, like, because it does have a pixel look, but it doesn't even look like old games. It looks like a new game made with pixel art.
And in that moment, the moment you find that out, everyone I knew just went, oh, I can be the one man army.
Yep.
I can do what Pixel did.
And like the nice thing was I actually did go and like take some like online courses, like learning like C+ and stuff like that, and learning unit like basic Unity.
Okay.
Never did anything with it, but it was cool to learn.
Yep.
You know?
But that goddamn game
Yep.
made everyone feel like a superhero because it just says like you can be the all-in-one.
Yep.
You know? And you know, and there's still examples of that come along nowadays. I mean, like Daisuke Ishiwatari from Guilty Gear he did the music, he
Yeah,
did some
that
voice acting,
freak.
he
Yeah.
did some art, he fucking helped with the game like design, that like just every aspect of that was his baby, you know. And Toby Fox as well, right?
Okay, so
Teamed
when
up with Temmie.
Undertale came out, I think is when I started being like, but what if I just what if I go back?
It's not too late.
Yeah.
Okay, but at the time, I guess the thought was just draw pages and see what happens.
Yeah, and what I was doing is I'd sit down for like an hour every evening after work, and I'd do character sheets. I'd be like, okay, let's do this character. Let's see where this goes. And so like, okay, this guy is like, he's like a trucker, and he comes in and out of town, but he's legendary because like he's such a badass, and like he's not with any one faction, but if he wanted to be, he would affect things greatly. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so I had all these like individual characters like designed to fit into this world.
And are you following their short stories, or are you following one person's narrative?
So the main two characters, now that I think of it, oh god, fucking damn it! Oh,
Because like the way you're putting this together, I'm thinking like you could be describing a Sin City type of setting, where if the city itself is the character, then we can follow the different pieces as they go about.
yeah. No, I think my intention was to have like kind of a main character, but then like a kind of secondary character who's also sort of important as well. And basically, they were two like young kids, girl and a guy, who were being like trained in this pretty rundown gym.
Names, John. Names.
I think it was, oh my god, I think it was like Ren and Rin or something like
Ren
that.
and Rin.
I don't even remember, like honestly.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so then like the guy character, let's call him Ren. I don't think I ever wrote those names down, but they're the only thing that come to mind. He was basically the kind of concept of like natural talent isn't important as long as you try hard. He wasn't like, he did not have much natural talent. He wasn't a great fighter. He does not win a lot of matches. But after he gets his ass kicked, he gets up and he tries again.
Rock
and he
Lee.
comes back. Rin, the girl, was a lot colder, but she was basically a genius. And she did not have to try. And a big conflict, the central conflict of the story would be the conflict between these two characters, where it's, because like this is something I've struggled with a lot in kind of my own life, because a lot of my friends are hyper talented illustrators, and they would always kind of like, they could draw circles around me. And I think this was like a weird expression of that, which is so fucking cringeworthy now that I say it out loud.
I mean, it is, and I can see that parallel clear as day, but there's also the very, very often visited hard work versus literally the word genius trope in anime.
Yeah.
You know, Tensei
Rock Lee versus Gaara.
Yeah, right. Or your Neji versus Naruto.
Yep.
You know,
and I think that's a narrative I've always found so compelling, because like it was only really when I started doing YouTube stuff that I really started succeeding at anything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, like I got a job in the animation industry and like done like I'd done short films that did really well and stuff, but like I'd never really felt like I'd excelled at stuff. I've always felt like anything I had to succeed at, I had to put like an exponential amount of effort in. And so I think this was kind of my way of dealing with that.
Okay.
And so these two characters, they're like, they would be close, but there would always be a weird kind of rivalry between them as well. Does that make sense?
I see what you mean. You completed short films?
Yeah. I did like animation in college, and I loved making films.
Okay.
And I would just make like, the tutors would always be like, make a 1 minute piece of animation, don't do a story or anything. I'd make like 5-minute films, and just because I loved making them. And like some of them did pretty well. Like I won a bunch of prize money. And
okay.
Yeah.
So, well, the importance of acknowledging that point is that like, if you've completed projects in the past, that means that like you're not on the infinity brain treadmill of the first project that you are putting a ring on and marrying at first sight, that you will never ever let go. Right.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to finish a project and put it behind you and move on to the next one.
Totally. And like some of these projects, like they were like, 9-10 month projects that I ended up finishing, and like, I was happy with them at the end and moving on to other stuff. But the thing about those projects is I had the limitation of college. They had to end. You
had a grade and you had a deadline.
This thing would never end. But it was nearly like, to be honest with you, I enjoyed the ever-expanding nature of it.
It's tempting. It's tempting to always want to build on top of what you have and never commit to a freezing point.
Yeah. And I think in a way I was also kind of okay with that. I think part of me knew I was never going to finish it.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it depends, because, sometimes for some people, and I know for myself, there are ideas that you can come up with where you're like, this kind of world is almost like, it's like a place of refuge almost.
That's exactly what it was.
Right? Your inner sanctum, like Ajna in Indivisible, like you turn to your inner palace and go like, I've got this cool world. I want to think about it for a while, and that'll be a fun thing to pass the time.
Yeah.
Right? That'll be a fun thing to build on, and kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of developing my tools a little bit, turning into this world.
So this city, it was like a diorama, and I would just like make characters and fill the city with characters, And so like the center was these two characters, but then there was all these other characters around it. And I'd love doing that. I'd love just sitting down for an hour and being like, right, what am I going to design?
What was this whole thing called?
I think I just called it Angel City.
Angel City.
Because basically, in terms of like the long-term story where it was going, it was the idea that wrestling was going to start becoming fake. Basically a massive new faction would come in, and the idea was they'd be kind of gentrifying the city, and they would have done this to loads of other cities around the world. It's like, listen, we can't just have chaos reign here anymore. It can't be just who wins, because it's too messy and there's too much damage. So this like group of super elite wrestlers would basically come in, take over, and then once all their guys were in the position of power, everything from that point, it would be now a fixed kayfabe wrestling federation. And so it was like the fight against that and the fight to keep it real,
The death of the old world.
That's exactly what the story, like, in the biggest sense was.
The samurai are dying out.
Yeah.
The new age is coming.
And so the two main characters, the girl and the guy, their mentor was called Jimmy the Whale.
Of course.
And he was this old man with a giant whale tattoo on his back. And no one, like, they didn't really know who he was, but he was pretty much he used to be in, like, he used to be in a wrestling faction called, I think it was the Four Kings. And it was basically
Shinteno.
these just four ultra badass wrestlers who used to rule, like, who used to just completely rule in the old days. And, you know, it was real, just like, man, in the old days I was something. But his partner from that was the guy leading the gentrification of the city, was the guy kind of bringing in all these new wrestlers and just being like, we got to clean this shit up. Like, this can't. And the idea that, like, the city was like a real kind of organism and that all these factions would balance each other out, they didn't want that anymore. They wanted just a clean, functional machine of a city. Does that make sense?
Sure. So a lot of talk about, like, sort of these characters and like what's happening with the politics, I guess, of this.
I guess
of this
so.
world. Yeah. Can you give me a setting in terms of, like, what are we visually looking at? Is this...
So this is, I would say, kind of like... You're talking a kind
Ireland?
No. I would say kind of Midgar-ish, like, kind of very grimy kind of city, not clean, but kind of beautiful in its own way.
Modern day?
I would say kind of modern day, kind of maybe a little steampunky, little fantasy.
Cars driving around?
Yeah, totally. Modern day.
Okay.
Yeah.
No horses?
No.
Okay. And TVs and wrestling rings and
yep.
super huge arenas?
Yep.
Okay.
All that stuff.
And
like internet as well.
Yeah, okay.
But maybe we're talking like dial-up internet.
Sure. Were police pulling up to crimes wearing singlets and solving crime?
No.
Okay. So it was still just life was life, but this is the thing that is the most important thing to all of us, and we all kind of tune in.
Police are police, but the police would probably have representatives who were wrestlers.
Okay. So you have this this boy and this girl. You have Jimmy the Whale. What is the story? What is the journey of these characters? What up to what point did you think out?
So in terms of like broad strokes, what happens is like the internet starts being a thing, and that lets like the Skull Corps, that faction, like organize in a way that was never possible before. This sets off the balance of the city, and all of a sudden they start gaining too much power. That's, say, like your first major story arc.
Mm-hmm.
And then like whatever, like the girl and the guy ends up like maybe kind of beating them, like, or like it bring them to a stalemate or something. But that's what like catches the attention of like the kind of new order of wrestlers who are like, we're going to come into this city, we're going to wipe everyone out, and then we're going to regulate it so wrestling is now fake and we can organize it and we can keep power forever. Because that shit that just happened with the Skull Corps, that can never happen again. Okay,
so in this setting then, is this like an Ultimate Muscle kind of thing where
yes,
there will be, of this week, this character or this new wrestler steps up and needs to be defeated in the ring, in front of everybody, televised.
Yeah. But then, like, there's backstage stuff as well, I guess, where it's like, you know, wrestlers are getting injured backstage. There's, like, shady dealings going on. There's, like, you know, there's, like, heel turns and stuff like that as well.
Okay. Of course. But real.
Yeah. 100%.
But real. Okay. Did you have a sort of, like, how much did you get on page?
I think I probably had about 60 or 70 pages of like different characters and different like scenarios. And then I also did a chapter. I drew out like a full chapter just in pencil of what it would be like.
So you got it to sketch form, basically.
Yeah.
Loose sketch. What was it? Was there a moment or was there a thing that just kind of made it start fading out? Was there a moment that you hit that you were like, what the fuck am I doing?
There was a moment when like I needed to draw this one particular panel. This was about 20 pages in, and it was like, it was, I guess, meant to be like the girl punching the guy super hard and him flying backwards. A lot of perspective, a lot of kind of stuff like that. And I tried to do it over and over and over, and that panel kind of broke me. And I was like, fuck, am I ever going to like have the ability to actually do this? And then I think around that time, I had started working full time in animation as well. And like, you know, other life stuff started happening. And I think there's this thing that happens a lot of animators, I think, where you get a job in animation and you stop drawing in your sketchbook.
Yep.
And that happened me around then. Now, later on in life, I'd come back to drawing in my sketchbook because I realized how much I missed it. But I think that's where the project started to taper off.
Yeah. And it almost symbolizes like the death of some creative drive.
Yeah.
Because that sketchbook is where your brain, you're the glut of ideas in your brain. It spews out. It's got to go somewhere, you know, and like, even if you just have an idea for a character or a thought or a doodle, like that sketchbook helps you just get that all out. And when you're overwhelmed and when your entire day is just working on this one thing, the last thing you want to do is keep drawing at the end of those days.
And it's really hard. But there was a time, I think, where I was kind of working on this, and it was a good balance. But it was very difficult to maintain that.
Did you ever commit to discipline on it? Like a regimen of sort of saying, I'm going to make a page per week?
Yep, totally. And I did that for a while. And yeah, I still have a lot of happy memories of working on it.
Okay.
You know, like I kind of think it was a super cool thing, but like the scale of it was so ginormous, and I'd never done a comic before.
Yeah.
You know, I'd made animated films, but like comics are a totally different beast. And there was a lot like that going against it.
But it sounds like you never quite sat down and like typed out like
there was no script ever.
Right. Where this was going or what.
All these ideas were visual.
Just floating.
Yep.
I know you said you've never talked about it to anyone, but has anyone read it?
I think a few people read the 20 chapter thing I did.
Okay.
Or the 20 page thing, the 20 page chapter.
Do you remember what kind of feedback you got?
I think they were just like, yeah. And I think that killed me. Oh.
Let me bare my soul.
I remember I gave it to one of my friends, and this friend was not like an artist person at all. And he kind of like thumbed through the 20 pages, and he kind of just goes, yeah, can't really tell what's happening. And I just died.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In particular, too, I've felt that on like page layouts that I've slaved over, and then eventually decided that version F was the right composition to go with. And then like just the offhanded comment of like, oh, it was a little confusing at first, but I think wait, no, what's happening here? And you're just like, oh my God, throw it all out. Just burn it all.
There was one panel.
No looking back.
I did, and it was of the dude like German suplexing the girl. Mm-hmm. And I was so fucking proud of it. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I gave it to someone, they looked at it, and then they like turned it 90 degrees and looked at it and then turned it back. And I don't even remember what they said, but that destroyed me.
So you probably hand it over and just fidget in the corner as they read, right? Yeah.
And like, that was hard because I was always like super insecure over my art skills.
Right.
Like I love drawing, and I still love drawing.
Yeah.
I'm still bad at drawing. Like I can't draw well at all, but I still like doing it.
And but again, at this point, if this is something like you're in this program, you've completed like assignments and you've worked in finished projects, like your friends know you can draw, and like they know that you've worked on things and they know that you've completed work.
I was a better filmmaker than I was an illustrator.
Gotcha.
Like
okay.
I could write a pretty decent script, and I could like I could evoke emotion with short films. Like I was decent enough at that.
Okay.
But I was always working around my illustration, as opposed to I was always finding ways to cheat, you know? Like, so the one, like, you know, one film I did, it's like I took a bunch of photos of me and my friends acting out a situation. I cut those photos out, I colored them in Photoshop, and then I like animated them like a visual novel.
Okay.
So as opposed to like getting better at drawing. You know what I mean?
Right. You find kind of creative shortcuts.
And
in
like
that way.
finding the creative shortcuts was really cool, but it did mean that like my drawing didn't start improving until I started like actually animating.
drawing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like even with the 20-page thing I did, like the drawings on page 1 were so much worse than page 20. Page 20 wasn't good, but it was better, you know?
Always. Like, that's the thing about it is, like, I got really good at, like, almost tricking myself into using, like, Photoshop and Corel Painter, and in some cases 3D Studio Max, and just, I got good at software, and I remember, like, finding out that I could mask bad form with CG and really just kind of like having a moment of going like, oh, okay, I think I can make this look a little better if I light this awful drawing in a really drastic way.
So there was a point I kind of dabbled in like, you know, Artist Alley stuff as well. I used to sell prints like in Artist Alley, and there was a point I realized that when a print was really going to shit was when I was just dropping gradients on it and hoping for the best.
Yeah,
like I hadn't considered things like hue and tone properly, and so I was like, well, fuck it, this will be a weird gradient, maybe this will look good. And sometimes I'd cheat enough where it fooled people, but then sometimes it just was a mess.
I was lucky enough that I had a friend, Carolyn, God bless her heart, that she would look right through that bullshit and be like, yeah, this is nice. Send me the layers.
Oh, that's such a terrifying phrase.
I'm like, but what is it? Yeah, I don't care. Send me the layers. Get this shit out of my sight. I want to see what you drew, you know? And I was like, oh, and like she set me straight on that enough times, you know?
And I bet that hurt, but I bet it was like the best advice.
Like brutal medicine.
Yeah.
Brutal medicine that you need, you know? It's like, yeah, stop, no drawing the hands behind the back nonsense, you know what I mean? Like, no, show me the drawing. Show me what you considered, like, what perspective did you go for here?
Yeah.
Like, what was your reference on this? Speaking of which, like, what were your art style inspirations and references at the time? Is this a more of a manga inspired sort of take on things?
No, this was very kind of simple sort of art. Like the closest thing I could compare it to is like, imagine if like a tired 8-year-old tried to draw Scott Pilgrim.
But it's already that.
No, Woolie, you gotta push that slider way past 0.
Okay, all right. So super duper stylized, we'll say.
Like kind of, there's a lot of old Super Nintendo cutscenes that had like big chunky characters. Yeah. And it was kind of anime, but not really. Kind of like a little bit Wind Waker-y, kind of like that.
All right. So no, we're not dealing with human proportions necessarily.
No, definitely not. Which was a way for me to disguise the fact that I knew shit all about anatomy.
Motherfucker, you know the deal already. You can't break the rules until you learn them.
I know. And like, that has always been such a thing I've struggled with drawing. And I'm still like that. I'm still bad at that stuff.
Yeah. That's, man. It's so tempting, dude. It's so tempting to just see, like, cartooning and be like, oh, cartooning means I don't need to learn proportions. Yep. It means I don't need to learn proper perspective. It means I don't need to learn all these rules of anatomy.
Well, like one of my favorite...
And it's like, fuck you 100% do.
One of my favorite artists in the world is Zach Gorman. Do you know his stuff? I Draw Nintendo. Really just beautiful stuff, but like his arms are like squiggles and stuff.
Okay.
And I was always like, well, look, if Zach Gorman doesn't know this shit, I don't need to know it. And then one day I found Zach Gorman's life drawings. And I was like,
Yep. That's what it is, man. Yep. There's always that, you know? Like
there are some freaks out there who can make it work. Like, is it John Bergerman maybe? He doesn't, like, his drawings are all, like, they look like children's drawings, but he's just got an amazing eye for, like, putting colors together in a way. And, like, I saw a talk from him before, and he legitimately doesn't know, life drawing, but he's one of the rare exceptions where it is kind of his benefit. But like, if you're someone who's actually trying to, like, especially with a comic, like, you just have to know that shit.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Scott Pilgrim, because I feel like Brian Lee O'Malley's art is one of those things that'll absolutely make a kid think, oh yeah, you can just skip all the rules.
Yep.
Right? You can just make a bunch of funny smiley emoji faces and stick a body on them and call it a day, you know? And you're just like, nah, no. Like, you can go and find some full rendered stuff he did that's like, oh no, that's...
Yeah, like, he completely
That
knows.
is solid.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. This is intentional, you know? And then, of course, there's the fact that, like, the pixel art that we're thinking of, right? The Super Nintendo frames, like, all of that is very accomplished real artists removing unessential details to show you exactly what you need to understand.
And that process of removing unessential details, it looks simple, but in actuality, those are some of the most advanced art shit in the world.
Yep.
Like, that is the real genius, being able to simplify stuff.
Yeah. That, like, and you know, like, I really feel like there's been more than enough, like, articles written about, like, the analysis of Mario sprites or Sonic sprites or Mega Man and how and why they got to the position they did, you know? But, like, it really is, like, the absolute removal of anything excess to communicate a simple idea.
Even going back to Cave Story.
Yep.
Most of those characters are, like, a couple of pixels tall.
It's a head and, like a square for a body.
Yeah.
But, like, the thing with that is, with that head and that couple of square, like, and that square shape for a body, you still need to be able to create gestures.
Yes.
You still need to be able to create emotions and expressions. And so this is where I'm remembering classes where it would literally be like, okay, so you want this is how simple you want your character to be. Fine. Draw a big box that will be a big rectangle. That's the head. Draw a small rectangle underneath it. That'll be the body. Now, with no expressions, just these two shapes, draw them bending and squashing and stretching to convey this gamut of emotions.
Yeah.
Show me what two rectangles sitting on top of each other look like when they're sad. Okay, now show me them, like, not just sad, but anxious. You know, like, let's make it more complex.
Yeah, like, we had animation classes like the sack of flour. And you had to take a sack of flour.
Exactly.
And you had to make it act without any limbs or facial animation. And it's a shame, because I feel like where I am artistically now, I completely understand the value of that kind of exercise. Back then, I didn't really, you know? And it's a shame, but I guess that's, you kind of live and learn.
I did that exact exercise.
Yeah.
Yep. That was right after we learned walk cycles. Yeah, I remember going, the sack of flour is classic. And then I remember at the end of that sack of flour exercise, the teacher brought in, storyboards from Bruce Timm's Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, cool.
And just, like, everyone's fucking brain just opened, because when you really pay attention, like, I remember it's one scene of Joker on a podium, like speaking like a politician to the city, and, like, he's going through like 13 or 14 different ideas in like 5 seconds, and it's Mark Hamill's performance, like, driving the car.
Yeah.
But holy fuck if the animators didn't bring every single word to a new keyframe of, like, emotion in this one sentence, you know? It was fucking mastery, you know? And you're like, okay, now, like, that sack of flour kind of idea, like, take what you just learned and, like, just multiply it on itself.
Yep.
For every
100%.
line of dialogue, you know? What are, in your story, tell me there's gotta be a moment that you had where you thought of some kind of twist or some kind of power-up moment or some kind of big hype, like concentration that just made you feel so good whenever you thought about it.
Okay, so
what was it?
The whole thing about it was, like, the guy and the girl, they slowly realize, first of all, they're like, oh man, Jimmy the Whale's, like, pretty tough. Like, he's actually, like, he can actually, like, wrestle, even though, like, he teaches them and they kind of think he's out. He's, like, done. But over the course, they start to realize that this guy is, like, a monster. And it's nearly like any situation they get into, he gets them out. You know, like whenever things are about to turn really dire, he's there and he saves them. Then when, like, I guess the gentrification arc happens, he gets killed.
Right.
And all of a sudden the safety blanket is gone.
Right.
And that was the big moment to me where I thought that would be so exciting, because it would kind of be like they were now forced to grow and to be more careful because the thing they relied on is gone. And the thought of that kind of tone switch in story was so exciting to me.
Okay. Yeah. The safety net removed.
Yeah.
And actual danger can touch you now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, hey man, like that's you must have heard a thing or two about Reboot at this point.
I believe I saw a video on it once.
Okay, right. Well, that's exactly what blew my mind was when the children suddenly had to deal with real life because they were no longer being protected.
Yeah.
It's a good moment. It's fun.
And like, you know, I think stuff like that it's relatable because, like, you know, everyone moves out, you know, everyone kind of gets away from like whatever safety net they have originally. And I think stuff like that, it's fun to try and express that in like of a more fantasy setting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Okay. But you're not getting off the hook though.
Wait, okay.
What is the exact opposite of that moment? What is the thing that you thought was so rad at the time that now you dread and cringe? What is your low point? There's something in there that makes you embarrassed to even bring this story up.
I'm pretty sure the guy goes Super Saiyan at some point. No, it would have been cool. His hair went from black to white.
There was an actual hair transition power-up.
I'm pretty sure there was.
Was there visible energy?
I think he wore like really cool pants with flames on them. And yeah, there was probably energy. I think that was early on, and I did eventually get sense and be like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
Because that was just like pure power fantasy with no kind of meaning or anything.
Raw,
and like when you consider that, like, that was pretty much my self-insert character, that makes me want to die. You know what, Woolie? Let's just dial that back. Let's just get rid of the whole last, say, 2 minutes, and we're gonna edit that part out and keep going.
Just don't talk about it.
So we'll go back to the part where you asked me about the cringy part of the project. So 3, 2, 1. I don't think so, actually. I don't think there was really anything.
Yeah.
So,
airtight.
yeah, good stuff. Yeah,
Top
just
to bottom.
just all really solid.
All real good.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. That's what it is. There's always that thing where you're like, I can't tell anyone about this.
So the scary part when you asked me that was like, I couldn't think of anything straight away, but then something in my chest went, it's there.
Oh, you know.
Like, I felt the pull.
Oh, you know exactly what that is, because you had that moment when you were drawing it or sketching it and you had like your tongue sticking out of your mouth, like,
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it.
Shit. Is there any point where, is there any point where you were inspired enough that you basically arguably almost like lifted a moment?
Probably the whole thing.
Really?
I would say so, yeah. Like if you watch Tekken Kincrete, like Tekken Kincrete's a film about gentrification in a really like cruel way. And I really liked that idea of it. There was some kind of subtle old god shit in there as well.
Okay.
Where basically there was this idea that there was a character in it and he was just kind of normal looking man in a dirty vest and just like boxer shorts, bare feet, and a bag on his head. And he was just a serial killer. And he'd go around the city and he would murder people. No one knew who he was. No one knew where he came from. And he was completely invincible. And he was like this idea that this city is very old and a lot of dark shit has happened. And he was like this kind of, I guess, sort of collection of that, because like no matter what happens to the city, there is always like this kind of very dark history, like there is with a lot of cities.
Is this Tekken Kincrete?
Sorry. I think I'm after going on a complete tangent here. This was just a character I had.
Okay.
But that idea was basically a personification of like a Silent Hill concept or something like that. You know what I mean?
The first thing my brain thinks of is, do you know Paranoia Agent?
That's what it is. Yeah, no, you nailed
Shonen
it.
Bat?
Yep, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, you pierced the darkness.
Yeah,
Really, that is what that is.
Shonen Bat. Yeah.
And like there was so I'd say most of the ideas in this you could trace back to something like that. Like even the dynamic with the girl and the guy, like that's just shonen. That's just Naruto Sasuke, you know? That's
I mean, shit, dude. Like if we looked at the character designs, right? There's some element somewhere, like there's whether it's like a little hair spike of some kind or a baggy sash.
Yep.
Right? Maybe some line Sonic boots or who knows, but there's always very clear evidence of what it is. And right now you're off the hook because you don't have it in front of you and we're not looking at it.
Thank God.
But you better believe I want to see it.
No, Woolie, no. Please. I'll never be able to talk about visual design in my videos again.
When I talked about Runnin', when I talked about Jack in the End of the World, I made an image gallery.
Woolie, your drawings were way better than anything I have ever done.
Cheers. I'll thank you, but at the same time,
it's not really a compliment as much as like
I don't feel. I feel like okay. I can't make you send me scans of your work. I can't make you show me your homework. However, there is something like, again, letting it go. There's something about letting it go. Yeah, that's what that's the noise I want to hear, John. No. You gotta really.
But what if I redraw it?
And you make it look all better? And that,
do you know,
what if you trace Gone?
Man, I can't imagine what this thing would be if, like, I had done it after Hunter x Hunter. Okay, I will try and go back and find those character sheets, and if I can find them, I promise I will send them.
Okay.
Some of them, at least. There's a lot.
At the very least, just like maybe even just doodles of visual direction. Like, you know what I mean? Like the city itself. You said, like, I'm sure if this is a setting that you drew 60 pages of. Right? You got to find something in there that you're willing to show.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I will try, because I know those sheets are like, I kind of encounter them every like 14 months when I'm clearing something out, and I'm like, oh shit, look at this. And then I look at them and I'm like, but what if? Yep.
And here's the thing, right? Right now you're getting like you're in the hot seat, but it's not that hot because you get the benefit of just talking about the ideas and conveying them verbally, as opposed to showing what you did as in your younger form at the time. So you get the benefit of the doubt of everyone hears your ideas and thinks about them in the coolest possible light, but you have to show it to convey actually
I will
this
try
was.
And find them, because you're right. Like,
you can't skate on your words.
No. God damn it.
You know, you can anyone can. You could go back to. You can go back to old ideas and you can sophisticate them and explain them in ways that make them seem perhaps cooler than they were.
I do have the comic I did. I'll send you a couple of pages of that.
All right.
And look, it's really bad. Like, it's awful.
No, that's fine.
It's not fine, Woolie. It's not fine at all. I want to die.
I mean, look, hey, I will say that like the idea of like the wrestling world is clearly one that Drinkbox Studios thought was interesting, right? When they made Juan in Guacamelee, right? And I want to say there was a cartoon about wrestlers. Was there a cartoon about wrestlers?
There was like a WWF cartoon, but it was not.
Yeah. No, not that. Definitely not that. What am I thinking of? I'm not thinking of like the Ripping Friends or anything. Mucha Lucha, perhaps? There was this lucha.
The studio I used to work on made that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or no, there was Mucha Lucha. They didn't make that. They made El Tigre,
Okay.
which was like also a cartoon about wrestlers.
A luchador world. Yeah, right? This is a thing. This is a concept it's happened. And I want to even say that there was a Kickstarter a couple years back.
Kickheart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kickheart. 100%. Kickheart was awesome.
I don't think I ever watched the finished thing.
I was lucky enough to catch it at Fantasia Film Fest here in Montreal.
Yeah.
I
think it's actually pretty hard to find online.
Yeah. I never looked it up as far as the Kickstarter goes. I just saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh man,
I really liked
that.
it. Yeah. So, people have thought about this and visited this idea in some ways, and hell, I mean, like Suda's first game was that fucking super dark Fire Pro, like, like that thing.
Yeah.
Legendary, depressing wrestling game. So, you're surrounded by people, by your peers here, all like there are good things out there.
Yes, Suda 51 is my peer.
There are good things out there in that vein. If you had to, right? If you in holding on to this idea and saying like, oh, but what if though, and you were to go for the video game version, how would you execute this? And I know you've thought about it.
Oh,
genre.
Turn-based RPG.
Okay. Yep.
And I had it planned out, so it was going to be like a 2D turn-based RPG that was side-scrolling with stealth sections. Just something simple.
Yeah. Basics. You can RPG Maker that.
I probably could, but for the love of God, don't start me down that road.
Well, I mean, if you had a name further if you had a name a little bit more developed than Angel City, like maybe we could have like twisted that knife a little bit, but it sounds like it's pretty firmly in your past.
I mean, I think so. Like, it's really like realistically, because I think back then I was also like, maybe I could pay an actual artist to do it. And then you realize what a terrible idea that is, because like it's never going to be the way you want it. And also like it's just not something that's feasible, I don't think.
So that was the place that my friend Josh and I eventually ended up at, where when we had Jack and the End of the World in its most recent incarnation, we basically got to a point where we said, can we just money this into existence? Right? We just want to see it exist. And we had to take a long, hard look and kind of realize even if you found one of the most talented artists who was willing to dedicate their time to your vision and not theirs.
Yes.
Do you understand the kind of micromanaging that you would be doing to make sure you felt happy with what they were doing?
But even like,
it would be, you couldn't pay them enough to suffer through your bullshit because your childhood dreams need to be executed perfectly.
But like, even when I'm getting like art done for the channel and stuff, like I do get very like, this part isn't right. And I have to try really hard to pull back on from that stuff and just be like, listen, the artist knows what they're doing. Cause they do. Cause otherwise like I would do it, you know? Mm-hmm. And when I think about that concept coupled with this insane idea that's been growing for like 10 years, no one deserves that. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah, no, like the creature in your brain is just this goop of flesh that is just city-sized and absolutely demands perfection of execution in all these moments. And you could you could pretend to hand that off to someone and be like, all right, so you're going to take care of this. And you'll be like, yep. And then you're just not letting it go. Yep. And you're gripping it until it's bleeding in your hands. And you're like, okay, well, I'll trust you to do it then. But you have to let it go. And you're like, yep. But it's like, you're squeezing it. You're squeezing the life out of it. Let me take it. I'm the artist. I can and you're like, okay, I'm trusting you. Like, it just can't happen. It can't happen.
No. But what if?
John, thank you. I feel honored that you would join me and sit down and share.
Oh, no problem. Like this was very therapeutic. And like what I would say is like it never went anywhere. Nothing ever came of it. I still had a blast working on it, and I think people should take big stupid risks and just do it and enjoy it for what it is. And if it doesn't work out, if you liked working on it, if it brought you happiness, like that's fine. I think, that's a pretty okay result at the end of the day.
Oh yeah. I mean, wouldn't change a thing.
No, me neither.
Except for the part where it didn't happen. Last thing I want to say is that I feel like the important part about this too, and like the reason why I love doing this type of thing so much and talking to people about it, is because it also shows me that it's like at some point when we get down to the core, when we we strip away all the layers, we get down to what you think is the coolest idea worth representing and showing the world. It's about wrestling.
Yes.
That's what that's your message.
That's who I am.
That's everything.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people like to be like enigmatic and a little bit mysterious and perhaps aloof and kind of be like, oh, if you ever got deep down inside, there'd be something you'd never expect down there. And it's like, nah, man, John fucking loves wrestling.
That's true.
And that's all there is to it.
Yep.
Right on, dude. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.